For someone whose entire career has been focused on joy, why a podcast on pain? Because these stories need to be told. A good phoenix rising out of the ashes story reminds us all that not only can we survive, we can thrive. And when we emerge, we're different. That's the alchemy of pain. It is wonderful to give you a new season of The Alchemy of Pain, and it's been a while. We took a beat. And the bottom line is, I never wanted this to be an obligation. I wanted this podcast to always be something that inspired me and stories that inspired me. And while there are always many stories that can be told, this one really tugged at my heart. And I want to give you a little bit of background because when I was a child, we were sort of told not to express our feelings. In fact, I remember my grandmother specifically saying, "Brenda, stop crying, you'll upset your mother." So what does that teach a child? It teaches a child to suppress their feelings instead of making peace with them and using them as an indicator and a way to release what's going on the inside. Now, it's taken me 60 some years after that to work through all of those things that were suppressed. And you know, in life, when there are some synchronicities. So I found this study that I thought was really interesting. And then I found a game, yes, a game that connected the dots to help you and your family. And we'll get to that in a minute, but I want to tell you the science first that so inspired me. So there was this UCLA neuroscientist, Matthew Lieberman, and he did a study with two sets of people. Now, the two groups had one stark difference. They both went through something that was troubling. But the one group actually named what they were feeling. And the science proved that the group that named the feeling had less activity in the amygdala section of the brain, and it served as a painkiller. We all know that there is physical pain, and sometimes you take painkillers for that. But for emotional pain, just being able to name the feeling acts almost like an emotional painkiller. And I went like, wow, that is so powerful. What if I learned that as a child? Then I'm scrolling through my algorithm, and a dear friend of mine from 30 years ago created a game that addresses this very thing. It's a game you can play with your children. And I want to introduce you to my friend, Jayne Boggs. She is a Christian transformation coach, creator of the game, Catching Thoughts. And it is designed to help children be able to address and understand the thoughts, feelings, and actions that they have in a healthy way. And because of this game and because of her work as a coach and workshops and her other interactive tools, Jayne is helping families all over the place. And she's also one of the kindest people I've ever had the privilege of knowing. Jayne Boggs, welcome. After that long introduction, welcome to the Alchemy of Pain.
Thank you, Brenda. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing your heart and doing the research. That was awesome. And
we've just begun to scratch the surface, my friend, because you created a game to help children and families actually be able to express the things they're going through. And I want to talk about the game first, but then the umbrella of this show is, what's the pain that was behind the inspiration? Because pain often and purpose are like kissing cousins. But tell us about Catching Thoughts.
Okay, well, The game is designed for children, but what I have come to realize after sharing it with parents, the game is really for anyone from 4 to 100 years old. And yes, I have coached a 90-year-old, 98-year-old woman, and I have used the concept that I have in the game with her. So I created this game. It is a faith-filled, fun, interactive game called Catching Thoughts. I can show you all the
Yeah, we want
box.
to see.
So this helps children master their minds and also train their minds, as you explained previously. So it is a great tool of teaching children that. It is also backed by science, and it's based on the CBT method, which is the cognitive behavior therapy. And that is just basically teaching the child that their thoughts affect their feelings and then their behaviors. So if a child has a negative thought, right?
Thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Oh
Yes.
my goodness, even if I, as a child, had understood that, because I
Right.
just remember feeling a lot of things and feeling stuck and
Mhm.
confused in all of it because you dared not talk about it.
That's right.
So, say that again so we get that.
Okay, so it's backed by science based on CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy. And that is how your thoughts affect your feelings and then affect your behavior, which is basically a God thing. You know, it was God's thing before it was science. He created that. And it's taking our thoughts captive, teaching children how to catch their thoughts in a fun way.
All right. So, we all have thoughts that fly through our mind
Mhm.
all day, every day. And as an adult, I've sort of learned, it's like the all you can eat buffet. You're not going to grab that thought if it is not going to, if you're allergic to it, if it's not
Right.
going to do you well. However, some thoughts need to be processed.
Mhm.
Do you teach a child how to discern what thoughts need to be caught and which ones need to be flushed?
Yes. Would you like to jump on the bases and I'll show you how?
I want to jump on the basis with you,
Okay.
Jayne.
All right, let's start. And these are the pieces to the game. Like I said, it's an interactive game. So we have bases that you can form as a baseball diamond. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that. So we'll start out with a hypothetical scenario if you'd like, or if there's something that maybe you want to share.
All right, so let's be real because
Okay.
everybody in the audience goes through stuff all day, every day. And recently, I had to make a decision that I knew was going to hurt and disappoint someone, but I knew it was the right thing to do for me. So there was all this world of confusion inside of me, and I needed clarity, and I felt bad about me. Like, aside from the fact that I knew I was going to hurt someone, I'm like, am I a bad person for wanting to do this?
Okay. All right. So your situation was that you needed to make a decision and it may hurt somebody. Okay. So that was the situation that you were struggling with. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, that was it.
All right. So now we have the person run to first base, and that is thoughts. Okay. So your situation is you have to make a decision whether you're going to share with this person something that could hurt them. Now, what is your thought that you are thinking because of that situation?
Well, I wrestled with it for a good month because I just, the last thing I ever want to do is disappoint or hurt someone else. But as I get older, the more I realized you can't betray yourself to protect somebody else's feelings. Now, that's a very adult way of processing it, but it took me a
Okay.
month to finally say, okay, Brenda, you're not intentionally trying to hurt a person, but you need to be honest.
Okay.
Am I playing the game right, Janie?
Well, you are playing the game right.
I'm
But
overthinking. Am I overthinking my
here's
thoughts?
my question.
Yeah.
So your situation was you had to make a decision whether you were going to tell somebody something that could possibly hurt them.
Mm.
Now, with that situation, what were you thinking about? What was the thought that was running through your head?
Well, I will say that part of me was thinking, geez, Brenda, how'd you get yourself into this situation? Like you are how old and you are back in this situation. So I was beating myself up a little bit. I was feeling
Okay.
ashamed of myself and disappointed in myself.
Okay. So we're on thoughts, and your thought was, how did I get myself back in this situation again? That would be a thought.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now we're going to run to second base. Do, 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 do.
Well, at this point, I'm limping to second
Okay.
base because I feel lousy
Okay.
about
So,
me. I feel lousy about the situation. Oh, and
okay.
here we go to feelings. Well, there you go.
Okay.
So my
So,
thoughts led to feelings.
exactly. So, with the situation that you were not sure, you had to make a decision whether you were going to tell this person, but it may hurt them. That was your situation. Your thought was, how did I get myself back into this situation? You were thinking, kind of beating yourself up with these thoughts. Okay. With those thoughts, you run to second base. How did that make you feel?
Sad, depressed.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm not with the game because it's usually children, but we're using Brenda's example. I do have an emotion stack, and the children can go through them.
That
And
helps. So it helps to name them. By the way,
there you
everybody,
go.
I hope you are playing along at home because
Yeah.
I know you probably had a
Yeah.
situation really recently that had thoughts and feelings attached. So if I can't find the words for it, I can go through the deck. Yeah, I was
Exactly.
angry at myself a little bit for getting myself in this situation, sad that I was going to end up hurting somebody's feelings.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So
well,
angry and sad would be good. Would
they
be
would be
good.
good
Okay.
ones.
So we have
They
the
were
emotion.
good bad ones.
We have the emotion stack that you can help children
Ooh,
that and
ooh,
teach.
ooh. I just have to ask you something because I
Sure.
just said they were good bad ones, but to
Mm-hmm.
be angry or sad,
Mm-hmm.
is that bad? No, it's real.
It's real. It's definitely real. And teaching the child that or the person going through it, it's not bad. When it becomes bad is when it starts to take over your life. And
Mm.
you live there. You live in those feelings. You live in those thoughts.
Mm.
Okay. So now that we have named the feelings, but never, no, you're never bad because of it.
But this is really key because when I was a kid, you sort of were like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
don't be angry, don't be sad, don't be. And we weren't given permission
Right.
to have the authentic feeling. I've
Right.
been in organizations that
Mhm.
bypassed the
Mm.
feelings,
Right.
and that is toxic.
It is
So this
toxic.
is so important.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
we're running to third base.
Okay. So we run to third base. Do, 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 do. So with the situation that you have to make a decision whether you're going to tell this person something or not that could hurt them. And then your thought is that you're beating yourself up. Like, how did I get back to this situation again? Then your feeling is angry and sad. Then we go to third base and it's the actions, your behavior. How do you now behave with that, with those feelings and those thoughts?
Well, I was almost unable to act. I felt frozen,
Mm.
sort of like, excuse me, but damned if I do, damned if I don't,
Right.
stuck in quicksand of my own making.
Okay. So you still were unable to make a decision then. It was hard to make that decision because you were stuck.
So we get there and we realize something's got to give.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't stay here because I'm miserable.
Right.
So that was sort of the wrestling with myself kind of period.
Okay.
And then I had to sort of talk to myself. And by the way, I want to go through this as a child would too,
Okay.
because I'm all therapied up. Like I
Right.
know how to,
Yes, she
I know
knows
how to,
it.
it's almost a shame when you know too much about therapy and you're like,
Yes.
oh, well then this is this and this is
Right.
this. So,
Right.
so with regard to actions, I ultimately did make the decision to have the conversation, but having taken the time to really sift through it, process it,
Right.
and realize that the kindest thing to do would actually be to have the conversation, even though the person would be disappointed.
Okay. So that is going to be rerunning the bases now. Okay.
Ooh.
So now we're going to rerun the bases. We're going back to home plate. And this is where we find truth.
Mm.
Okay. So tell me a little bit of the truth that you found in this situation.
Well, the truth that set me free was if I'm really caring about this person, I need to be honest.
Okay. So you replaced your situation of whether I should tell him or not, whether that would hurt the person. You replaced it with the kindest thing would be is to tell him the truth. Okay. So that's now your situation. We're going to run to We're going to run to first base. And now your situation is you replaced it with truth. And the truth was, excuse me, that the kindest thing would be to tell him. So with that truth now, how are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
So I'm thinking this is not going to be easy, but I must. And my other thought was, how do I convey it in a way that is as kind as possible without minimizing the truth?
Okay. Okay. So we are trying to establish a new healthy thought.
Mm.
So your thought would be to let's take a look because what we have is we have an affirmation deck that we can look through and we can
Let's
look through
do
a
that. I
scripture
want to
and,
see the affirmation deck.
okay, and then we also have this the scripture deck, so you have a choice between the two, so let's look through it. I am never alone, God is always with me.
Hmm.
I trust that everything will work out for my good.
I like that one.
Okay, let's see if we have I choose peace over worry.
Oh, give me some of that.
Give you some of that. Okay, I am loved just as I am.
Mm. Oh, I just want listen, if I just bought the game just for the affirmation deck,
Exactly right.
it's good for what ails me.
Okay, so we like these three.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so now we'll go
So
back
it
to
goes from self recrimination and shame and guilt, which are painful
Mhm.
feelings,
Yes,
to, yeah, this is still going to be tough, but I'm not walking into this alone.
right,
I'm still loved, even though I am a completely imperfect human being,
right.
and that I can have peace in
Mhm.
doing the right thing in this situation.
Yes,
Hmm.
very good. So
Okay.
with that, with those thoughts, there are your new thoughts. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Then we're running to second base. Do, 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 do. Second base is feelings. Now with that new thought that you are loved just as you are, and you're not alone. You're going to choose peace over worry. How does that make you feel?
Calmer and comforted.
Okay.
I feel comforted. by those words and I feel safe.
Yes.
Safe is a great
Yeah.
way to describe what those things make me feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So now we run to third base, and that is our action. And how will you behave now that you have this new thought? You have a great feeling. What will your behavior be?
Well, instead of me having a bee in my bonnet and sort of off with their head and we've got to
Mm,
talk about this now, there has been a processing so that I am actually able to convey what I need to from a posture
mhm.
of peace rather than pressure.
Yeah.
And what I've always found in my own life, when pressure is like you have to say it now,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
peace, like, actually can wait for the open door and the right opportunity and for the right words.
Yeah.
And yeah, actually writing out my thoughts in a way that brings clarity, because there's nothing worse than going into an important conversation
Mm,
and throwing everything up against the wall and hoping something sticks.
right.
That just makes confusion
Right.
for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because in the game, because again, running the bases one time, it will bring relief to the person or the child. But if the child is not taught how to continually live in that place,
Mm,
that old negative thought will come back.
mm,
So the child needs to be taught how to focus on the positive and let go of the negative. So for you in this instance, my thought change plan, and then you would write out maybe I am loved just as I am. I choose peace over worry. And then as you fall asleep at nighttime, instead of thinking about the whole situation and overthinking and ruminating about it, you will have a plan. Like you said, you have to have a plan. And that plan is to say these things and to repeat them
mm,
because what we repeat is what we'll do.
it's
What
so
we
true.
So it is a great idea to write it out and then stay focused and practice it. And my famous words as a coach is repetition, repetition, repetition. What we focus on is what will come to be.
I think that to have a tool like this, and I don't know that anything else like this exists. So kudos to you for creating this. It serves both adults and children, but in
Mm-hmm.
your memory bank, can you think of a child that you did this with? I mean, who hasn't been through many years of therapy
Yes.
and it turned an inflamed and challenging situation into one that was actually resolved.
Yes. In fact, it was confirmation to me through this little boy. I might get a little teary eyed.
Please do.
I had a little boy. Well, his mother reached out to me and she was very discouraged because this little boy, he was about 8, maybe 9, he wanted to hurt himself and he wanted to hurt his mom. I know. And she reached out to me because she heard I had this game. And the mom and the little boy and his little 5-year-old sister came to visit me. And we played the game, except for he didn't want to play the game. He came in very angry, very upset, said the game was stupid, and he didn't want to play. And I told him that was okay, that he didn't have to play, but his little 5-year-old sister wanted to play. So she was so cute and she was like, I'll play. And he just went about his business in the room, doing nervously kind of going around the room. And she played and she was adorable. And I forget what her situation was, but she was running the bases and she was just really doing very well with it. And then he kind of came around and he said, well, I guess I'll play. And I said, that's wonderful. So he began to play. He went around the bases about 4 or 5 times, and Brenda, there was such a burden lifted from this little boy. He went from the pain, these thoughts in his head, to Mom, forgive me. Does God really love me? And he was a changed little boy after playing the game. The game brings out a lot of deep stuff. Just going around the bases. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? The situation. So it does bring to the surface what's inside. And when it was he was going through a lot of transition from a divorced home. Grandmother just died. It was a lot going on for him. He didn't see his father very often. So he was believing many lies about himself as a young boy. And this game is also very good because it helps children to recognize the lies that they can begin to believe at a young age, which become strongholds. You know how the Bible talks about strongholds, and strongholds is just a belief system that you've been believing a lie for so long, and then it becomes so a part of who you are that you can't believe any other way. So that day, he was able to see that God loved him and that he was forgiven. And he said to me, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to leave here believing that. And that's when I said, well, we got our change plan. We got our thought change plan. And one of the things that was so amazing was he said to me, you're going to be famous. And not that this is about being famous. This is about a little boy sharing how much he thought I would be famous. Like there was something that happened inside of him that would make him think that I would become famous. So
He got a breakthrough.
he got a breakthrough. And his
How
mom
old
got
was that little boy?
I said 8, but I'm going to say 10. I'm
Okay.
going to say about 10. And I do have his little testimony on my website. And I will always remember him. He told me that every time a little child played the game that I should tell them that God loves them. So I have to remember that. I have to remember after every time. So yes, that is one of many stories. I had a bunch of teenagers the other night playing the game in my living room. And, it's just cool to see how people get relief by some of the beliefs that they're thinking. So,
Because we live in such a disconnected world.
mm-hmm.
And so many of my own problems were because I was disconnected from myself.
Right.
And this kind of process helps you integrate
Yes.
the whole, embody who you are, body, soul, and spirit. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have many listeners and viewers that we are a non-denominational
Right.
podcast. We don't, your belief system, it doesn't
Absolutely.
matter if you are in alignment with Jayne's particular faith, but the process
Yes,
works and it
it
is
does.
backed by science. And that is really powerful.
It is
And I got to
powerful.
ask too, I want to get to the origin of what inspired you. But
Okay.
honestly, so many people have all these great ideas lodging up here
Mm-hmm.
and they stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did you create the game and when did you finally realize, wait, I need to be doing something with this?
Okay, so the game actually was created about 7 years ago when I was a Christian counselor in New Jersey. I now live in Florida. And I came up with this idea. And I actually went to the dollar store and bought Dollar Tree dollar bases. And I threw them on the ground and I just ran the bases with the children. So, again, this game is adorable and it's well done, but the power is behind the biblical principle and the science.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you don't necessarily have to be the same religion, it's the science behind it. So that's where it was created. It was created in New Jersey. And then I moved to Florida and I kind of transitioned into a different career. And I put the Dollar Tree bases in a drawer. And about a year and a half ago, I started to do some real soul searching. And I wanted to leave an impact on this world. I wanted my great great grandchildren to know who I am. I wanted to leave an impact for them, my children, for the world that I live in. And I didn't know what that meant. I wasn't sure what does, you can make an impact just in your own community, you know. So I was cleaning in January 2025 as everybody cleans their drawers out. And, you want freshness for the new year. And I came across those bases. And immediately in my head, I was like, I'm going to publish this game. And I went to my husband because his opinion does matter, which is ironic when I tell you a little bit of my story of pain. That is, his opinion does matter, and he was like, "Let's do it. This is a great idea." So as God would have it, as I lined up with God in this area, everything just smoothly went. And when I tell you everything, I mean everything. I mean, what do you do when you create a game? Where do you go? Where do you get the finances? How does it happen? Brenda, it all happened step by step, peacefully. And that's really the origin of it.
So I love this. And I just want to encourage anybody listening or watching right now. Maybe there's something that you got as a download. You know it was inspired and
Mm.
it's in a drawer somewhere. Annabelle the Octopus, the children's book I wrote, I got that as a download in 2017. It didn't get published until 2024. Similarly, my sister saw it in a drawer because I had given her the poem and she's like, this should be a book. And I'm like,
I love it.
yeah. And so she was inspired to do all the artwork.
Mhm.
And here it is, something that's blessing children today all over the place. And I just want to encourage those of you watching, don't quit your daydream. Don't
Mm.
quit the thing that was put in you, the irresistible must to do something.
Mm.
Maybe take it off that shelf, take it out of that drawer, let it breathe again, and maybe it will come to life in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
So you intimated that your husband was an important part of your origin story. And look, this
Yeah.
is a podcast about pain. I started this podcast because I went through the worst year
Mm.
of my life and I was trying to make sense of it. And I found that in hearing people's stories of other people that had been through tough stuff, it helped me keep going. And I learned something from everybody I talked to. And everybody's pain is different. But quite often, if we don't become bitter, we become better and it leads us to our purpose. So
Mm.
that's a long way around to get to the usual first question, which is Jayne, what was the pain that led to the
Mm.
creation of this beautiful game?
Mm. Wow. Okay. So again, I may get teary-eyed. I'm almost hitting 60, but about 30 years ago, I was in a very difficult situation in my marriage. And I reached out to a counselor, an elderly Baptist woman who wore the little hat. Yeah. And I remember going to her because I wanted to change my husband. That was my problem. Certainly wasn't me. And I went to see her, and I remember her looking at me after I told her my situation, and she says, "Oh, honey, we can never change another person. We can only change ourselves." And I wasn't sure whether to run out of the room, but I decided to stay. And I decided to listen to her. And that was the beginning of my transformation journey.
Because the truth will set you free, but usually first it makes you mad.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
she didn't tell you what you wanted to hear.
No, I didn't. I needed a solution to change him.
And, you know, you could have just said, I'm done.
Right.
But you
Yes.
decided to stay. And what was the thing? What needed to change about you? What did you
Oh,
learn about you?
so what I realized through the process of the counseling, and I realized that my whole entire focus was on my husband. And because my focus was on him and his behaviors, I lost myself. I wasn't focused on myself. I wasn't focused on who I was and who God created me to be because I was too worried about him. So that was the beginning of change when I was able
How
to.
did you dislodge yourself from that
Mm.
self-abandonment.
Well, when I began to get free, I realized that I was always that person to begin with. But I got lost again in codependency, focused on other people's behaviors. I got lost in that. So when I started to break free from that, it was very powerful. Like I realized that I had control over my life. I realized that I could create. I realized I had purpose. And one of the biggest things that were most helpful, most beneficial was setting boundaries. And when I was able to set healthy boundaries, people will either rise to it or they will leave. And that's the risk that I had to take. And fortunately, my husband, because he's wonderful and he knows what's best, he rose to it because he also saw the change in me. I don't know if he would tell you that, but there was changes. And because I let him go, I let him be who he needed to be. And I became myself and I set those boundaries. And again, it's risk taking when you're in relationships with people
Especially
when you
when
set boundaries.
a paradigm has been established, well, this is how
Mm-hmm.
Jane acts and this is how the husband acts. And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, you're saying, no, 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 we're not going to do it that way. I can only imagine when you first started to establish boundaries. How did that feel?
Well, it felt good to me, but I think I was more like a bulldog. So I had to even it out a little bit. You know, when you start setting boundaries, you become this bulldog. It felt wonderful because I could rely on myself, I could rely on God, and I could partner with God in doing what I needed to do to fulfill my purpose in life. So it was good. It was very, very good.
How did you have moments during that process where you're like, this isn't going to work? Nothing's changing here. I mean, because there are women and men,
Yes.
perhaps, in our audience right now, and they're in a tough spot
Yeah.
in their marriage, and they are taking some steps, maybe setting boundaries. And it doesn't just happen overnight. Like, ta-da, we're all good now.
Right. Right. There were definitely moments, but the more that I was able to pull back and work on myself and allow God to work on him, that's when the changes began. So I was okay whether he was there, whether he wasn't there. I was okay whether he was happy with me or not happy with me. It was a process. It wasn't one and done. It took years of renewing my mind. I would have to say, like, that was a main thing, was transforming my mind, renewing my mind, thinking differently in this situation.
I think in a lot of, unfortunately, religious environments,
Mm-hmm.
we are taught what a relationship is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then in trying to maintain that, we're not being authentic.
Right. That's true.
And in my own faith journey, I think the thing that messed me up the most was me trying to be like every other person who was supposedly a person of faith. And I'm just not her.
Yeah.
I'm not her. I am working out my own
That's right.
salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a process of, it's become a process of really accepting myself.
Mm-hmm.
If, and I am a person of faith, the scriptures say we are accepted in the beloved, then who
Mm-hmm.
am I not to accept me
Right.
the way I am
That's
made
right.
to be?
That's right. And that's a great way to renew your mind, to be
Hmm.
transformed.
Hmm.
And I also think when we are focused on other people's behaviors, then again we lose all creativity. Like I just to be creative again, to I love to create. I love to help people. And that was suppressed. So by doing what I did, you know,
And you had to name your own feelings to
Oh,
get
yeah.
to this place of healing in your marriage. You had to call it
Yes,
for what it was. Look,
that's right.
I was in a bad marriage myself for the first, well, it just was tough, right?
It
And
is tough.
I was so busy keeping up the Instagram dinners and vacations
Hmm.
and the whole fake facade of this marriage instead of being honest about the fact that I was crying to myself every night and wondering, oh my, what have I done? And how do we fix it? You know?
Right.
So I also want to acknowledge your husband's role
Hmm.
in changing.
You would like to acknowledge my husband's role. You mean like how he changed?
He responded. Like he
He
could have said,
responded.
wait a minute, you're having boundaries? I'm out of here.
Yeah, yeah, no, I am very, very thankful because a lot of times people don't, they respond with, I'm out of here. And if that's how it lands, that's how it lands, you know.
Yeah.
No, he responded very well. And it, and there's grace, there's grace for one
I mean,
another.
you're neither of you are perfect.
No, exact. Oh, no, exactly. And when I began to change and set him free, that took a grip off of him to get
Mm.
honest with himself because I was getting honest, So, yes, I'm very thankful. And as you can see, as much as I'm saying his opinion didn't matter, but it still does because you saw that I went into the room with the game and I was able to say to him, what do you think? Because it does matter. But I still would have created the game with or without him.
Well, it's wonderful to be on the
Right.
same team,
It
going in the
is.
same direction. But sometimes you do need to set boundaries and establish
Yeah.
a new, I guess one of the takeaways is it's never too late to establish a new game plan and a new set
That's
of
right.
rules by which
Right.
we can live our life if you're
That's
willing to
right.
do the work.
That's it.
So, what would you say to a parent right now who is, their heart is crunching because their child is in trouble? Emotionally, they feel it, or they're overwhelmed with too much.
Right.
What would you say to encourage the parents out there?
I would tell them to take a deep breath in and out and know that all things work together for good and that acknowledging that there is trouble is the first good sign
Mm,
and get the help that you need.
mm,
There's so much help out there today and just know that nothing is hopeless and that you can get through it. But sometimes, as that old little Baptist counselor said to me, the change has to begin with you.
mm,
And it's possible. And that's where the power lives is in you.
mm. That's a great way to end what has been. It just went by like this. Jayne, what a joy to talk to you.
Um,
And I am rooting for you. If people want to get
Thank you.
catching thoughts, how do we direct them?
Okay, so I have a website, catchingthoughts.com. You can go on there and it gives you a great story of the game and how it's played. I also do workshops and Zoom calls, coaching sessions, and you can, like I said, go on the website and you can find all that information out there.
Thank you for inspiring me to reboot the Alchemy of Pain because I feel like this is worthy. Because how
Mm-hmm.
I wish someone had talked to little me and
Yeah,
given me permission to name my feelings.
yeah,
Who knows where I'm. Thankfully, I ended up where I did, and no regrets. But wow,
right.
what a tool in the hands of parents and teachers and for adults and for children. Janie, thank you so much for how you're serving in the world and how your pain
Thank you.
has led to your purpose.
Thank you for having me, Brenda. It's a
Thank you.
joy.
And thank you for tuning in to this edition of The Alchemy of Pain. If you know somebody who has a story that must be told, someone who has been through tough stuff and came out the other side better and not bitter, with a message that can inspire us all, send them my way. I would love to interview them. Have a great day, everybody.